Let us begin with stillness. Take a breath. Let your mind be like water, clear, without turbulence. In the quiet, we see what is hidden in noise. In the stillness, the truth begins to whisper. We speak today of signs, not of judgment, but of awareness. For it is not hatred that protects us from harm, it is understanding. Bad people, not monsters from stories, but those whose hearts have turned in small, deliberate ways. Not all who are wounded become dangerous, but those who seek to wound others carry signs, and these signs we must learn to recognize. Let me share with you the 8. Return now to silence. This is not about judgment. This is about discernment. We are all made of light and shadow, but those who choose the shadow and stay in it leave tracks. Learn to see them, not to hate, but to protect what is gentle in you. Stay awake, stay kind, stay wise. That is the path. In the quiet spaces of human interaction, kindness is a language that does not need to be spoken. It shows itself in a glance, a gesture, or the simple act of making space for another. It is soft, yet not fragile. It bends, but it does not break. However, in the presence of certain people, this sacred human offering is not met with gratitude, but with calculation. Some people, when faced with gentleness, do not reflect it. They do not soften. Instead, they see it as an opening, a weakness to exploit. In their world, power is the currency, and kindness is simply a sign of lesser strength. They do not understand that kindness is not given out of helplessness, but out of deliberate choice. So they take what is given freely and use it to climb higher or strike deeper. Such people are not always obvious. They may not come with sharp edges. Often they are charming, attentive. They will observe what touches your heart, what brings you peace, and then slowly begin to manipulate it. They will test your boundaries, not by force, but by erosion. Bit by bit, they lean on your empathy until it becomes a tool in their hands. You may begin to feel uneasy, but unsure why. You question your own instincts. After all, they have not shouted. They have not hit. They may even speak of love or loyalty or shared dreams. But something is off. You give and they take. You compromise and they demand more. Each act of kindness you offer becomes the foundation upon which they build their control. This kind of person thrives on imbalance. They do not meet your openness with openness, but with strategy. They notice that you hesitate to hurt, so they are unafraid to push. They realize that you reflect, so they are free to act without reflection. It is not that they are strong, it is that they count on your conscience to do the work for both of you. To them, kindness is not sacred, it is leverage, and this is what you must begin to see, not with anger, but with clarity. The moment you recognize that your goodness is being twisted into a leash, you must stop and observe, not to punish, but to protect. Yourself first, always, because true kindness is not blind. It does not serve those who aim to harm. It is discerning, it is aware, it may forgive, but it does not forget patterns. It can be compassionate, while still being cautious. It understands that not everyone is ready to receive softness with respect, and that's okay. But we do not leave our kindness in the hands of those who mistake it for weakness. So remain kind, but let your kindness have a spine. Let it walk beside wisdom. Let it listen to the quiet voice within that says, enough. Because those who twist kindness into weakness are not strong. They are simply betting that you won't notice. Responsibility is not a punishment. It is a form of power, the quiet kind. When we take ownership of our actions, we are not weakened by guilt. We are strengthened by clarity. In accepting where we went wrong, we also accept the chance to grow, to restore, to begin again. But there are those who refuse this path, not because they cannot walk it, but because they choose not to. People who never take responsibility often carry a fragile sense of self. To admit fault for them is to admit failure of identity. They would rather twist the truth than face themselves in the mirror. So when conflict arises or pain is caused, they begin to shift subtly at first. The facts become soft clay in their hands. Their memory becomes selective. They weave stories that place them just outside the circle of blame. It can be confusing, even disorienting. You begin to wonder, did I misread this? Was it really my fault? You replay conversations, moments, exchanges. Somehow, even though your heart feels bruised, you are the one carrying the burden of apology. This is the silent art of the blame shifter. They plant doubt like seeds and let you water them with your self-reflection. They are quick to highlight your errors, slow to acknowledge their own. If they say sorry, it comes with conditions. I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I'm sorry, but you made me do it. These are not apologies, but veiled attacks. Words used not to heal, but to escape the weight of responsibility while appearing remorseful. This behavior is not always loud. Often it hides behind charm or intellect or even vulnerability. They may appear wounded, and in some ways they are, but woundedness is not a free pass for harm. Everyone has pain. The difference lies in how we hold it, whether we use it to grow or as an excuse to destroy. What is most difficult is that these people often attract those with open hearts, empaths, caretakers, forgivers, people who are quick to reflect and slow to accuse, and so a cycle begins. One person avoids responsibility, the other takes too much of it. One walks free of consequence, the other walks heavy with both their burdens. To see this clearly without hate requires maturity. To recognize that someone's refusal to take responsibility is not your failing, but theirs, that their defensiveness is not your cue to become smaller. It is only when we stop accepting their silence and deflection as the truth that we begin to reclaim our balance. Because at the root of all healing is truth, and truth begins with responsibility. Without it, there is no ground to stand on. Only fog shifting, obscuring, distorting. Some choose to live in that fog, but you do not have to. Charm is a beautiful thing when it comes from sincerity. It can brighten a room, open hearts, and make connections feel effortless. But charm is also a tool, and like any tool, it can be used to build or to deceive. Some people use charm not as a reflection of genuine warmth, but as a disguise. Their pleasantness is not a mirror of their soul. It is a mask crafted with intention. These individuals are often admired at first. They know what to say, how to say it, and exactly when to say it. Their presence feels like sunlight, inviting, warm, seemingly safe. They listen well, compliment freely, and seem to understand you faster than most. But charm is only dangerous when it is hollow, when it does not connect to character. Because behind that carefully constructed exterior, there may be another layer entirely, one shaped by control, manipulation, or hidden motives. And by the time their true intentions begin to emerge, you may already be entangled. They've earned your trust, your time, your belief in their goodness. So when their actions begin to shift, a sharp word, a cold silence, a strange manipulation you second, guess what you're seeing? The early charm becomes a trap. It becomes evidence you use against your own instincts. But they were so kind, you think, maybe I misunderstood. This is how harm enters softly, not with chaos but with contrast. The warmth you once felt is now used to make the cold feel like your fault. You chase the charm that once was, hoping it will return. But it was never real, only a costume worn long enough to disarm you. Such people study others like maps. They learn your hopes, your fears, your patterns of forgiveness. They tailor their charm to what you most long to hear or believe. It is not that they love deeply, it is that they study deeply. They observe not to understand, but to gain advantage. Their compliments may be sincere in sound, but not in soul. This is why discernment is so important, not cynicism, that is a different path, but a quiet watching, a willingness to wait, to observe if charm is consistent with action, if warmth is followed by integrity. People who charm before they harm often cannot sustain depth. Eventually, the cracks show, the stories don't align, the energy shifts, the kindness feels conditional. What begins as admiration may shift into confusion and then into hurt. And often people blame themselves for being too trusting. But trust is not the problem, deception is. There is no shame in being open-hearted. The lesson is not to close the heart, but to open the eyes. So, learn to notice, not just what people say when they want something, but what they do when they think you can offer nothing. That is where true character reveals itself, not in the charm of the beginning, but in the truth that follows it. Words are invisible threads. They carry energy, intention, and truth, or the lack of it. When we speak of others, especially in their absence, our words reveal something deeper than opinions. They reveal what we protect, what we attack, and what we hide. Some people speak of others with grace, even when those people are not around. Others do the opposite. Their kindness exists only in presence, not in truth. There are those who wear friendliness like a costume. In your presence they smile, laugh, affirm. They nod in agreement, echo your thoughts, make you feel understood. But when you step away, even briefly, their tone changes. Their words become sharp. Their eyes roll. They question your character, your choices, your worth, not openly, quietly, skillfully, behind your back. Such people are not always loud gossips. They are often careful, calculated. They wrap their criticism in concern. I just worry about them, they might say, or don't get me wrong, I love them, but these are not expressions of care. They are veiled betrayals, not direct enough to be confronted, but damaging enough to spread doubt like smoke. And what's most painful is not the words themselves, it's the betrayal of closeness. You trusted them. You let them see parts of you that are not polished. You believed their warmth was real. So when their hidden voice is revealed, it cuts deeper than any obvious enemy ever could. Because the harm comes not from distance, but from the illusion of closeness. People who speak ill behind others' backs often do so for power. Not the kind that wears a crown, the kind that whispers. They feel taller by making others smaller. They feel relevant by creating drama. They seek control, not connection. And they trade honesty for influence, unaware that each quiet betrayal carves away at their own integrity. What they do not realize is that the habit of double speaking fractures the soul. When the outer words and inner thoughts are never aligned, peace becomes impossible. A life lived in masks is exhausting, and eventually the masks slip, often at the worst moment, because words spoken behind someone will eventually return in front of them. To observe this pattern in someone is not to condemn them, but to see clearly, to realize that the person who speaks about others behind their backs will one day speak of you in the same way. It is not personal, it is habitual, and their loyalty is only skin. Deep a reflection of convenience, not character. So we listen closely, not just to what people say, but to when and where they say it. How someone speaks of others in their absence tells you more than how they behave in their presence. Words, when used with wisdom, create trust. When used in shadow, they create walls. The choice always is ours. Mistakes are part of being human. We all stumble. We all say the wrong thing, act too quickly, or fail to see clearly in the moment. A mistake is a moment of unconsciousness, a misstep made without harmful intent. And when we are willing to learn from it, a mistake becomes a teacher. But some people do not learn, not because they cannot, but because they do not wish to. There are those who repeat the same harmful behaviors again and again, not because they forget, but because the pattern serves them. It protects their ego, maintains their control, or brings them benefit in a hidden way. These patterns are not accidents. They are familiar steps in a dance they've practiced for years with different people, in different settings, but always with the same result. You may begin to notice this when apologies start to lose weight. At first they sound sincere. I didn't mean to. It won't happen again. I'll change. But over time, the words remain the same while the behavior stays unchanged. You find yourself in a cycle: harm, apology, temporary peace, and then harm again. It is not random, it is rhythm. This repetition creates a kind of fog. You begin to wonder if you're being unfair. After all, they say the right things. They acknowledge your pain, but acknowledgement without action is empty. Growth is not in the words, but in the consistent breaking of harmful cycles. If the same wound is inflicted repeatedly, it is no longer an accident. It is a pattern, and patterns reveal intention. What makes this dynamic even more difficult is that the person repeating these behaviors may not see themselves as bad. They may genuinely believe they are trying, but effort is not measured in feelings. It is measured in outcomes. If someone keeps choosing the same response that causes pain, what they are choosing is not you, it is their own comfort, their own survival mechanism. Patterns are powerful. They shape our identity, and breaking them requires deep humility. It requires facing the part of ourselves we often avoid, the part that causes pain. Some people avoid this inner confrontation. They would rather repeat what is known than risk the discomfort of change. And so they walk in circles, dragging others along with them. Over time, you begin to see the signs. The predictability, the way conversations loop, the excuses that start to sound rehearsed, and then comes the most painful question: did they ever mean to change? It is a hard question. But asking it is not cruelty, it is clarity, because only through clarity can we begin to step out of someone else's destructive pattern and reclaim our own rhythm. To those who repeat pain, healing will always feel like a threat, but to those who suffer under these patterns, awakening is necessary. You are not asking for too much by wanting change. You are only noticing that what keeps repeating is no longer a mistake, it is a choice. Envy is a feeling few are willing to admit, yet many carry in silence. It begins quietly, a passing thought, a comparison, a subtle discomfort when someone else shines. It is not always loud or explosive. Sometimes envy hides behind smiles, applause, and polite words. But when left unchecked, it does not stay silent. It seeps out, not through confrontation, but through quiet sabotage. There are those who cannot bear to see others rise. Your progress, your joy, your success, rather than inspiring them, it unsettles them. Not because you have done anything wrong, but because your light reminds them of their shadow. In their eyes, your joy becomes a threat, your achievement an insult. And so, without open conflict, they begin to work against you subtly. It may start with small things. They forget to pass along a message. They leave your name out of a group recognition. They speak of your success with a dismissive tone. It's not a big deal. Or they just got lucky. They begin to plant quiet seeds of doubt in the minds of others. They question your motives, your qualifications, your character, always in ways that can't be directly called out. You might sense something is wrong, but struggle to put it into words. They were once supportive, maybe even close. Their kindness hasn't disappeared, but it feels thinner, like a smile with no warmth behind it. When you speak of your happiness, they quickly change the subject. When you struggle, they become strangely serene. It's not what they do, it's what they don't do. These people are not always malicious in the traditional sense. Often, their sabotage is not born of hatred, but of inner lack. They feel small and powerless, and rather than rise, they pull others down to feel level. Sabotage becomes their silent language of resistance, not against you personally, but against what you represent, a life they feel denied of, but are too afraid to claim. Their envy may never be spoken aloud. They may even convince themselves they are being honest or realistic, but behind the veil of their restraint lies a steady erosion of your confidence. They offer advice that subtly undermines. They encourage you to shrink, to be cautious, to not get ahead of yourself. It sounds caring, but it is control. This soft sabotage is difficult to confront because it often wears the mask of friendship or mentorship. You may feel guilty for even suspecting them. Maybe I'm being paranoid. You think, but your body knows. Your spirit knows. When someone celebrates you with their lips, but competes with you in their heart, it creates a quiet dissonance that cannot be ignored for long. To notice this is not to hate them. It is simply to see, not every hand that pats your back means to support you. Some are only checking how close they are to your power. True support does not come with conditions. It does not grow jealous. It stands beside you, not beneath or above. And in that kind of company, there is no need to dim your light to feel safe. There is a quiet kind of cruelty in this world that often hides in plain sight. It is not always loud, not always violent. Sometimes it slips through a smile, a joke, a glance. It reveals itself in those who find a strange satisfaction not in beauty, not in truth, but in another person's pain. They may not cause the suffering directly, but they feed on it, like fire feeding on dry wood. At first, it may seem harmless. A small laugh when someone stumbles, a smirk when another is embarrassed, a story told with too much enthusiasm about someone else's misfortune. But underneath the surface is something colder, not just amusement, but enjoyment, not just observation, but participation. Pain becomes their entertainment, their leverage, or worse, their comfort. This behavior is often cloaked in humor. Sarcasm, ridicule, mockery, these become tools to distance themselves from empathy. It's just a joke, they'll say, while watching someone shrink under their words. But humor, when built on the discomfort of others, reveals not lightness, but darkness. The laughter is not shared. It is taken, and it always has a cost. People who enjoy the suffering of others may have been shaped by wounds of their own, unhealed, unresolved, buried deep. Rather than transform their pain, they project it outward. Seeing others hurt becomes a mirror for their own hidden grief. But instead of facing that mirror, they break it by breaking others, and yet, no matter how much they laugh, they never feel lighter. You may notice them become more alive when someone else is diminished. In meetings, they highlight others' flaws but hide their own. In groups, they encourage division, then sit back to watch the tension unfold. They are not interested in healing conflict, only in fueling it. Their energy grows not from peace, but from chaos, as if stillness threatens to expose the emptiness within them. When confronted, they often deny everything. You're too sensitive, they'll say, or don't take everything so seriously. These are not clarifications, they are dismissals. The goal is not to understand, but to silence. And over time, if you are not watchful, you may begin to doubt your own sensitivity, your own sense of justice. But your discomfort is valid. Your heart is not wrong for recoiling at someone else's delight in cruelty. That discomfort is your compass. It reminds you that what is joked about should also be questioned. It reminds you that laughter is not always harmless. It can be a blade hidden behind teeth. True strength is not found in belittling others. It is found in how gently we hold their pain, even when it is not our own. Those who enjoy suffering may seem powerful in the moment, but inside they are starving. Not for laughter, but for healing they are too afraid to begin. And still, they choose to harm quietly, repeatedly, and often with a smile. Some people do not lie with words, they lie with actions, not by doing nothing, but by doing the right things for the wrong reasons. They are quick to help, generous in public, often praised for their kindness, but beneath their gestures lies a strategy, not sincerity. Their good deeds are not rooted in selflessness, but in self-protection. They give not to uplift, but to distract. These are the ones who know how to curate a reputation. They are often active in their communities, thoughtful in appearances, skilled at saying what is expected. When they wrong someone, they rarely own it directly. Instead, they point to all they've done. "But look how much I've helped," they say, or "You're forgetting all the good I've done." And just like that, the harm is buried beneath a pile of favors. It creates confusion, even for the one being hurt. You ask yourself, could they really mean harm? They've been so kind to others. And that is the trap. Because we are conditioned to believe that good deeds reflect good character, and most of the time that is true. But not always. Some people use kindness like a shield. They make themselves untouchable by becoming useful. When their misdeeds surface, they don't apologize, they redirect. They remind others of their generosity. They highlight the times they stepped in, helped out, said the right thing, and in doing so, they twist the narrative. Suddenly, the one who raises concern becomes the ungrateful one. The victim becomes the critic. The harm becomes invisible. These people often rely on perception more than truth. They understand how others see them, and they invest in that image carefully. It's not that they never do good, it's that the good they do is conditional. It comes with strings. With timing, with careful placement, it is often louder, more public, more performative. Quiet kindness does not interest them. They seek recognition, leverage, and control. You may start to notice a pattern. They are good to those who can speak for them, bad to those who threaten their control. Their kindness is selective, and their wrongdoing is silent. If called out, they act shocked, hurt. They say, "After all I've done," and you are left holding both the pain of their harm and the guilt of their goodness. It is a heavy confusion to carry. This blend of generosity and manipulation is difficult to name because it wears the clothes of virtue. It fools many. Even the person doing it may not fully see it. They may believe they are good because they have done good. But true goodness does not need to be loud. It does not hide behind itself. It takes responsibility. It acknowledges harm, even when it doesn't fit the image. In time, clarity comes. You begin to separate appearance from truth. You begin to see that a kind act does not erase an unkind heart. That a good deed, no matter how noble it looks, cannot cancel out deliberate harm. And from that place of clarity, you no longer need to argue. You simply choose to see, and that, quietly, becomes your freedom. So we begin to see not with judgment, but with awareness. These signs are not weapons to condemn others, but mirrors to help us understand the quiet forces that shape our relationships. The signs of badness are not always loud. They often move in silence, behind charm, behind smiles, behind good deeds. But when we learn to recognize them, we learn to protect our peace. Let us not become paranoid, nor cynical. Let us become clear, because clarity is not harsh, it is kind. It gives us the strength to step away without hatred, to observe without bitterness, and to choose truth over illusion. The presence of these signs does not mean we must attack. It means we must awaken. Not everyone who hurts is bad. But those who repeatedly choose harm in quiet patterns and subtle forms reveal a nature we can no longer ignore. It is not our duty to change them. It is our duty to see clearly, respond wisely, and protect what is sacred within us. May we be brave enough to walk away when necessary, gentle enough to forgive without returning, and wise enough to know the difference between those who make mistakes and those who make a habit of them. In the end, we are not here to expose others. We are here to expose ourselves to the truth, to live with eyes open, hearts clean, and boundaries strong. That is not judgment, that is self-respect, and that, quietly, is peace.